Where do things stand with Mike McCarthy right now?
Well, it doesn't sound like he's any closer to a deal with the Dallas Cowboys currently, Kevin, but we've seen the Dallas Cowboys always wait till the last minute on these types of deals. Go back to the start of the regular season. Dak Prescott signs on the day that the regular season kicks off. CeeDee Lamb kicks off late in the summer. Usually, these situations seem to linger until there's some sort of artificial deadline. And with Mike McCarthy being able to interview next week after January 14th, I would think that sometime here in the coming days, the Dallas Cowboys would step forward to see whether or not there is a solution for both sides to figure out whether Mike McCarthy can stay in Denver. But it is interesting that you would turn down the Chicago Bears. If you had no interest in bringing back Mike McCarthy, why would you turn that request down? If you essentially were moving on from him and knew you were moving on, that would not be very considerate to deny him the chance to talk to a team now that he could talk to next week. But the Dallas Cowboys, again, have not gotten a deal done with Mike McCarthy yet, and we'll see if there's a way the two sides can figure that out in the days to come before he's allowed to talk to other teams next week.
And that deadline would be January 14th. Schefty, thank you so much. Now, McCarthy's tenure with the Cowboys has featured success against bad teams and struggles against good ones. Facing teams that finished the season 500 or better during his tenure, they're 19-27.
Wow.
Dallas 31-11 against teams under 500. They've averaged 6 more points per game. McCarthy's only playoff win with Dallas came against the 8-9 Bucks in the 2022 Wild Card round. He's 0-3 in the playoffs against teams with a winning record. Well, the numbers don't lie, Hawk. When you look at this, though, that's one storyline.
I would not have expected that.
Exactly, and that is one storyline. It's also how the Cowboys handle things, especially with quarterbacks and star players. How do you think they're handling this with the head coach?
Horribly. I think it's bad. I would hope that this means that they are re-signing McCarthy at this point. I don't see a reason to Schefty's point of withholding an opportunity from a coach that you're moving on from. So I hope with everything in my being that this means they're trying to work towards getting him a new contract.
But would you, after seeing that graphic, would you, what's the justification to do it then? Because what you have is a coach that beats up with a good roster, at least it has been in the past years, on lesser teams.
It's January 8th. Yeah. That is not a new graphic. That is not new statistics.
Yeah.
And again, with everything you said, if you made the decision to move on, I don't think anybody would fault the Dallas Cowboys for that. You can definitely justify
just the timing.
It's January 8th.
Yeah.
We should have understood and known this by this point already. And if you are going to move on with them, you actually undermine the people in position. The conversations around Dak of whether he can lead, whether he can, should we get behind him, should we not? Well, if the organization doesn't do it, it fuels those things. And you have a coach who's trying to take hold of a locker room by waiting to the last minute. The message you send is, I'm looking for anything else. Anybody else to lead this team, and that's not what you want in the leader of your organization.
Do they want him more now that somebody else wants him? Like the fact that Chicago,
he looks more appealing.
He looks a little bit more appealing. You know, you let her go, and everybody else is looking in the room. You're like, dang, well, maybe I should have. That's what it kind of feels like, because Jerry Sunday said, hey, we want our guys to talk. We want people that want to be here, so go out there and talk. He said the same thing with Ezekiel Elliott. He ends up signing elsewhere with the Chargers. But then McCarthy gets that opportunity and he denies it. So I got to imagine this is a reunion. My question is, all right, if you do bring McCarthy back, what's going to be different? Like, how do you change this going forward if you're the Dallas Cowboys? Because you haven't won a playoff game other than the Buccaneers, and the offense hasn't looked as good.
See, that's my point. So if he comes back, do you fear this offensive scheme as a defensive guy when you're watching tape week after week and you're trying to get prepared for it? Is it a scheme that
double CD and we feel good?
So number one, is he going to stay the play caller, or is he going to bring some type of different offensive philosophy in?
Does he have to? Would you change it?
I absolutely believe you have to.
Do you think it's scheme, or do you think it was personnel? Because the year ago, this was a really good offense when he was calling plays.
Yeah, I would say that the year ago when it was a really good offense, Dak played at an incredibly high level, and it had a little bit to do with that graphic. You know, they took advantage of some important teams and defenses that they played against. That was actually 2 years in a row.
Okay.
So I believe this scheme in 2024 and beyond is way too execution-centric and not advantageous to your players. I think the second thing is you got to get someone opposite CeeDee Lamb. Like, if you think about it, Philly, they got 2 guys.
Yep.
The Rams, they got 2 guys. The Vikings, they got 2 guys. The Bucks, They got two guys. Like, everyone's got two guys. But
especially if you're
Dallas,
relying on execution.
Exactly. And so I think if you got to take a long, hard look at the scheme. You got to add somebody outside of CeeDee Lamb. Are they going to keep Mike Zimmer as the defensive coordinator? If so, can they keep Micah Parsons? And they got to retool the interior of their defense. So it's not like Mike McCarthy comes back and all of a sudden everything is solved and we're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. That's what needs to change. They need to give him the opportunity or the organization to say, hey, let's supply the team with what it needs so we can get a fair look at what we have.
But to your point where you said, all right, you're waiting to the last minute. If you're Mike McCarthy, is this the ideal situation to be in? Like, you come back as the coach, but just the way it all has transpired, they could have signed him to an extension last year. Throughout the course of this season, they could have said, you know what, this has been a tough season. Dak gets hurt, but McCarthy is still our guy.
I was more intrigued with him in Chicago than I would be in Dallas.
Yeah,
Candidly, because I know he's developed quarterbacks.
Like,
that was a big thing for me with Caleb Williams is it's easy to just say an X's and O's guy. Mike McCarthy has developed quarterbacks, and I had value in that.
And that simplicity of that offense actually helps Caleb because you have to get him within the confines
and they got
of
the
the
people to do it.
Even when Hurts has been healthy, when you watch this Eagles offense, especially in the first quarter, they have been very slow, and they have struggled. Any concerns about the layoff here and him being rusty with the offense?
There's definitely concerns. I think that you have to give Jalen Hurts the benefit of the doubt of his character, the work ethic that he has, and I'm sure he's been as sharp as he can with the things that he can control. I think the interesting thing is, more often than not, if you have a quarterback in this situation that hasn't played in a long time, specifically an athletic, mobile guy, a lot of times coaches want to get them into the game. They want to get them, on the move or maybe taking a hit or something, a designed quarterback run just to get them back into it. It'll be interesting to see if Philly does this with Kellen Moore. Like, does he feel okay doing something like that with a guy that's just coming off of the concussion protocol?
Yeah. When you look at this Packers defense, J-Mac, what are you most looking forward to seeing in this matchup?
How they defend A.J. Brown. I think you obviously have the addition of Saquon Barkley this year, and you, as a defensive coordinator, you always struggle with, do I commit more to stopping the run, or do I put somebody over top of A.J. Brown and not allow him to beat me? So I'm looking at these Green Bay Packers of the way they defend, the cover twos, the cover fours, of keeping that two-safety shell look. And they do it from multiple ways. And this right here, you're going to see it looks like it's single high coverage, but then on a snap of the ball, both the corners are going to get out and play cover two with the droppers underneath. Tua sees it, tries to check it down, and now everybody's breaking. This is one of my favorite ones. You're looking at these guys deep, and at the snap of the ball, Xavier McKinney gets out to the bottom of your screen, and now you have Keyshawn Nixon. He's able to jump in front of his route and steal an interception that's built all by disguise and keeping somebody over the top of A.J. Brown. Now, here it is. The Vikings come out with 21 personnel. They have a fullback. Imagine the Philadelphia Eagles with 2 tight ends in the game. Now they're deciding to put 8 in the box. You stack it to stop a guy like Saquon Barkley. But when you do that, you open up shot opportunities on the outside. You're going to see for the corners right now, Nixon and Valentine, it's one-on-one. And obviously McKinney is shading to the bottom to help with Jefferson. That'll be A.J. Brown. Now, Darnold hangs this ball in the air, but if you're Philly and you're looking at that for Jalen Hurts, maybe a little rusty, maybe not, you can throw a goal
ball. What would you do, though, if defensively? Like, because my mind is, if I was Green Bay, I'd be like, I dare you to throw the ball to start the game.
You have to.
I'd check you to see how good. I wouldn't let you let Saquon get going.
You have to. He's rushed for 2,000 yards. We always talked about as a defense, if a team can run the ball on you, well, then they can do whatever they want. So now when they line up for your coordinator, am I blitzing, am I playing coverage? I don't know, because their offensive coordinator has everything at his disposal. So I think you have to start off trying to stop Saquon Barkley and stacking that box.
At least have that 8th guy down there and then spin to one of those, right?
Exactly. You're trying to, as much as possible, that's safety, whether it's Xavier McKinney or Williams comes back, you're playing a chess game against Jalen Hurts. Of when are you coming down in the box? When are you flying out of there? You're trying to trick him as much as possible.
And so much of that also will depend on, like, how, to your point, how are they going to run Jalen and how much are they preparing on the edges and with the Saquon in the run game. And to your point about A.J. Brown, because he's going to be such a focal point in this matchup, his play away from the ball will be that much more important. I do think A.J. Brown is going to have a big game. He's a lineup and running guy. But right here, you'll see in the first matchup early in the season, where McKinney's there in the 2 high safety shell, like you said, you have Devontae Smith down the middle. And because A.J. Brown doesn't continue his route down the sideline, it allows McKinney to come all the way from there to the middle of the field for that interception. That is on A.J. Brown. Now you'll see a positive version of it where they have the pre-snap motion. Now this whole thing is predicated on A.J.
Clearing
out the corner. McKinney also has to take key to his attention, and it allows Barkley up the sideline. So whenever you have somebody like AJ, again, a lineup, a run it guy, you're going to get that extra attention as you should. That becomes an advantage as long as he's dialed in to know he can affect the game even away from the football.
You know what else I think does help Philly a little bit is their pass game isn't really predicated on the timing of a pass game.
True.
You know, like the only pass game concept they really throw on time is a stop route to the outside.
No.
So the rust part of it may not be as impactful as it would for other pass games that are so bang, 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 timing and rhythm centric.
Backstory too, Dallas Goedert back on the field, and that plays a big role. We saw him play a role at the end of the season, that final game.
They got him
getting
early
some
involved,
balls, right, from Tanner McKee. You fully aware of that game, of course, calling that game.